You're dealing with acid. That's what we're kind of trying to avoid, is we're counteracting the acid with this baking soda. It's basic chemistry right here. Good morning. What we're going to do today here is we're going to talk to you about winter prep for your car. Will your car survive winter? A lot of people forget to even look at their car, do all the things that need to be done to your car before winter. And if you don't do some of these preliminary items, your car may not survive. Have you checked the battery? Is it good? Is it corroded? How's your tires? Are your tires good? If you don't have your tires in good shape, you may end up in an accident when you could have just had better tires. We're going to talk about all the simple things you could do. We're going to work it up from basics. I talked about the Badger level of maintenance. Basically it's going to be levels 1 and maybe 2 today, but mostly level 1. Super easy stuff, nothing complicated, all the stuff you can do. I want to talk about the budget and how much I spent on all the preparatory items. A lot of money, but a lot of little stuff you can do to get your car ready for winter. All right, we're going to get at it and we'll talk about all the individual items. Got some simple things here. We got some windshield wiper blades. When was the last time you changed a windshield wiper blades? Have you looked at those? I mean, check out the picture I just took of my car. I mean, this is a brand new vehicle to me, and the wiper blades are horrible. They're not going to survive winter. So I'm going to replace those. A little bit of de-icing fluid. During the winter, I don't know if you guys know, but there's a different temperature for de-icing fluid. It's for extreme temperatures, down low temperatures. It helps you also keep it de-iced during the winter. So here's down to negative 30 degrees. I don't want to be out driving that low anyways, but when you do, if you have to, this stuff won't freeze up. If you use regular fluid, just the cheap stuff, it will freeze up. All right, the other trick that I like to use is a little bit of water repellent on the windows. That helps keep ice off as well. We're also going to talk about some battery protection here. We're going to look at my battery, see how it is. We got some baking soda. Go steal that from your wife. Get an old toothbrush, we'll use that. Battery terminal protector, we're going to spray that on there too. What that does is allow the battery to charge as best it can, and they take a pretty good hit during the winter. So you want to make sure that they are charged the best they can and they're charging the best they can, and you get all those electrons running through the cables to your engine to get it started. I just moved here to Iowa, so I didn't have one of these, but I picked one up, a nice big scraper to get that snow off. Make it nice and comfortable. This one's actually Extend-O-Matic. It extends now. Whew. Extend-O-Matic. Get across that big windshield. Trust me, the better one you have, the quicker you're gonna get that windshield clean and get back into that warm car. The other thing that nobody really talks about and a lot of people ignore and they don't even know that they need to do it is you need to check your antifreeze during the winter. You know, there's some temperatures here. We're gonna go walk through it. We'll check mine. You got to make sure that your temperature of your antifreeze will hold to the temperature of how low they'll get in the area that you're in. My real job, I actually will leave the car at the parking lot for about 3 or 4 days at a time. I want to make sure it's going to start when I come back to it. I'll show you how to check that as well. Okay, the first thing you got to do is go in there and unrelease your hood. If you don't know how to do that, the biggest place to look for that is the manual. Kind of look around your engine compartment. This thing's nice and clean because it's a new car to me. It's not a new car, but it's a newer car, and it was detailed before I bought it and took delivery of it. So it's in really good shape, so I'm just looking around. For winter prep, you just want to make sure that, you know, if the car's been sitting around or if it's a daily drive and you've never opened the hood, it's a pretty simple thing. Look in your manual and it'll show you how to open up the hood, and you really want to check that. You know, you'll never know if Rocky the rodent's in here cruising around. He's got a good spot. He can make a nice home right here. All that sort of stuff. Especially during the winter, you want to look in here as well. Your car's nice and warm. It's sitting there in the driveway or sitting in the house. Rocky's cold. He's going to find the warmest spot he can do to make a mouse house and then also do some reproduction. And you know, mice are just evil for cars. All right, now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to find the battery. So the batteries are sitting in different spots. They usually in the corners, car, in this particular corner, it's in the corner over there by the headlights, but you'll find them in different spots. They're typically out in the outside corners in different cars, over here or over there or over there. So the best place to do this, again, refer to your manual. But today we're gonna find my battery, and it's down here. It's EverStart, 800 cranking amps. That's the other thing, you wanna look, see how old it is. This one's a 3 of 19. If you haven't replaced your battery in about 5 years, you're living on borrowed time. So you don't wanna go into a cold winter with a iffy battery and then you're gonna hope and pray for the best. I guarantee you, Murphy's gonna show up at the worst time and he's gonna kill that battery when you really need it. So make sure you take good care of your battery and she'll take care of you. Next step is we wanna make sure that we're checking our antifreeze to make sure it's gonna survive winter. First of all, you wanna find your overflow tank or expansion tank. Again, refer to your owner's manual in your vehicle. They're usually up front by the radiator here or around the corner. So this is the air filter, and then this is the overflow expansion tank. Never, I repeat, never open when hot. Never open when hot. Unless you want to boil your face off and have it slide down your body, do not open these things when they're hot. You got to wait for the car to be cool, where the car's been sitting all night, and go ahead and open that. As you can see, they're pretty tight. There's going to be a vacuum on it. We want to open these up. And if you hear, there's no hissing, no pressure, none of that stuff. If you feel like a hissing or pressure, walk away. Just leave it where it's at and just let it cool. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look down in there and see the fluid. You also want to make sure this cap is in good shape too. Winter's going to beat up on your car is your antifreeze system. People don't think about it, but your car does operate at basically the same temperature all the time. But when things are cold, they expand and they contract a lot more and they cause issues. Different zones of the country are going to require you to have different freezing points during the winter. You know, it doesn't get down to negative 45 degrees in Louisiana, but it may get down to negative 45 degrees in the upper peninsula of Michigan. So you want to make sure that you have your freezing point of your antifreeze that'll handle and battle that winter temperatures. Now, there's all sorts of types of testers. This is a little bit probably a more expensive one. This has got an arrow that'll show you one. There's got these cheap ones that have little balls in there. I'll post a little link on how to do that, or I'll show a picture of what those look like. All right, cars are expensive, so a little bit of spend a bit of money on your tools. You know, you don't want to go overboard. You got to find a balance, but at the same time, don't cheap out, because if you get a bad reading off of one of these and you freeze up your engine during the winter, it's going to cause all sorts of issues. So you want to make sure that you got a good tester. All right, so these antifreeze testers, they all work on the same principle. They're checking the glycol level to see how strong it is to protect you against your water versus glycol level. The more antifreeze you have in your system, it lowers your freezing point. It also lowers your boiling point too. We'll talk about summer protection. We want to look at that as well. Now this particular one has a little arrow that's going to point to where the temperature, how good it is to. So you got plus 10 all the way to negative 45. I don't really want to be out there when that happens, but that's how low these things can go. Now the way we're going to test this is we're going to stick this down in here. We're going to use the bulb to pull in the fluid up into the tester itself. Now that pointer is going to point up to the top and show you where that's pointing at. So you want to do this twice to make sure you got a reading that's done correctly and you didn't screw it up the first time. Now that we sucked up this fluid and it's reading in there, we want to read horizontally across this bar to where it says negative 45 degrees. Now if the fluid was down to here, the pointer was down to here, it'd be negative 7, etc. Also, when you're doing this, go ahead and spray this fluid back inside your overflow tank. What you want to do is make sure that it's, if you spill anything like I did here, you want to clean it up immediately so any cats or dogs in the area or even children don't lick this stuff, because it's glycol is very sweet to the taste for cats and dogs, etc. So you want to make sure that you clean that up. If you get anything splashed in your face, make sure you dilute it immediately with water, then follow the directions on the antifreeze bottle. So wipe this down, and then after you're done, make sure you wipe your hands correctly, wash your hands, soap and water, so you don't ingest it and put it in your eyes accidentally. After COVID, we've all learned not to do that stuff, not touch your face, not touch your eyes, don't lick it, all that sort of stuff. But anyways, be very careful about your antifreeze. Okay, when I was talking to you guys about the antifreeze level, as far as the freeze point, I was also talking to you about the boil over point. Unbeknownst to me, and I just figured it out myself, on the back side it tells you about a boil over point. So what we're gonna do is I just checked this diesel pickup. I want to see where that was at too. So I'm doing the same thing on both vehicles. So you check on the boil over point and it tells you right there. It's going to boil over right at 131 degrees or 268 degrees Fahrenheit, 131 degrees Celsius. So 268 degrees, it'll start to boil over. Keep in mind, antifreeze does two things. It helps prevent boil over. It also prevents from freezing. Okay, so the water boiling point without antifreeze in it is right around 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if it's under pressure, it moves up to about 230 to 240 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, if we have antifreeze in here, you can increase that boiling point to much higher. In this particular case, my truck will boil over right around 268 degrees, actually a little bit above that. So it's got some pretty good antifreeze concentration in it, is really what it has. What we got here is two batteries. The battery terminals, you're gonna look for a negative, which is black typically, and a positive right here. Now, if you don't take care of your battery, it's gonna have a light white phosphorus stuff building up over there around the battery terminal, and it's just going to look nasty. This particular battery is in good shape. I'm going to use my other truck for example on how to clean that up. These batteries are good, so I'm not going to mess with it, but the other batteries I'll work on. Okay, what we're going to do here, we're going to clean the batteries off this nasty battery terminals. They're actually not too bad, but what I was talking about is a little bit of corrosion going on there. There's also a little bit of corrosion going on over here as well. I've seen much worse, but what we're going to do is show you how to do that. We're going to use a little bit of baking soda, a little bit of water, and an old toothbrush. It's a simple way to do that. Now, if you don't want to disconnect your battery, you're not comfortable doing that, you don't have to do that. You're just not going to get the best connection, the best cleaning. If you do disconnect it, just keep in mind all those fancy electronics that you've recorded, like your radios, your seat presets, all that sort of stuff. If you have a car that does all that stuff's going to be erased. Now, to me, that's a small price to pay to good satisfaction knowing you have a good battery for winter. We're going to get back at it here, and we'll show you how to do this. All right, the biggest challenge of this is finding the right wrench for the battery. I finally found the right one. It's a 12mm wrench, so what we're going to do is take these battery terminals off. As I mentioned, if you do this, it's going to take away all your presets, your radios, your seats, track, all that sort of stuff, your power seats. No big deal, you can reset those. Good chance to use that manual I showed you how to use that nobody uses, but those manuals are good there for a reason. All right, when you do that, make sure you don't connect the wrench across the negative terminal and the positive terminal. There's a big positive and negative. You don't do that because you'll be welding. Don't do that. Alrighty. Sometimes these are tough to get in there. They're not easy to get in. Called a box in, the closed in wrench of the wrench, and use that. It's pretty straightforward, easy. Straight mechanical. The challenging part is if there's a lot of corrosion on these terminals, they can go bad. Now what you want to do is you want to inspect these. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is what you don't do. Some Mickey Mouse child, and I say a child because no real man would do this, and then I'll deal with this later, but what this is what you don't do is this is actually speaker cable run for battery. This is bad. Really, really bad. This is I'm just kind of speechless right now. Don't do this. I knew that this was here, and it's on my list of things to do and fix. Truck's in a project that's going to be sitting here in my yard for a bit, but once we get the garage all fixed, we're going to work on this sore stuff. The whole car's got a few things. I bought this truck cheap because of that. Now, what we're going to do is move this cable over here, move this cable over here so they don't touch. As you can see, there's a positive and there's a negative. Okay, you don't want to connect these two because they'll be welding, like I said. Now, you can take a brush. There's also a tool that I can't find right now that you can run across this and spin it across these terminals. You can also take a brass brush or a steel brush and clean these. That green stuff is a little bit of corrosion. You clean this off, make it nice and shiny, and that helps you get your battery connection the best it can be. Now, you do the same thing over here on this other battery. Now, unfortunately, diesels have 2 batteries, so I gotta do this one more time for this truck. All right, what I'm gonna go do is get a little bit of water. I got my baking soda, and what we're gonna do is brush this over there with my toothbrush. I'm back. Now we got a little bit of water. We're gonna put a little bit of water over the top of this. You're like, water, electricity, this is bad, right? Well, if you connect the 2, it's bad, but you're not gonna do that. I told you not to do it. We're gonna get a little water over the tops of these terminals. Remember, this is your old toothbrush. And we're going to use a little bit of baking soda. Go back to basic high school chemistry. And what this does is this neutralizes any acid that's out here and makes a nice clean connection, okay? So we got rid of any corrosion that's here and eats up that corrosion. Now, use a little bit of water to dilute that and get that out of the way. Pretty straightforward. Like I said, this is Badger level 1 of mechanics here. Oops, I forgot to put a little water on it. This is easy stuff. Nothing complicated about it. The biggest, hardest thing for me with this was find the right wrench. Now, most cars these days are metric. Even if you're a US car, you're like, oh, I'm American, it's not metric. Well, unfortunately, most of these cars are metric. I hate to say it, I'm a red-blooded American, I bleed red, white, and blue, but most of the stuff is metric. Trust me, it's easier in the end. Okay, now it's nice and clean. We're gonna take our paper towel and clean this off. Make it nice and clean. All right, brush this again, bright and shiny. We got all that corrosion off. See how shiny it is compared to what it was when I first started. Super shiny. Now these were not in bad shape. I've seen it where it's caked up. It looks like white, frosting. That's where you want to put a little bit of water and baking soda on it first before you even start to clean it off. It'll help you get everything off and get that bolt off easily. Now, I did these posts. These are called the posts. Now what you got to do is you got the terminal clamps. You want to do the same thing to the terminal clamps. These aren't as bad. I'm going to clean these up with this is a brass brush. Like I said, there's also a terminal cleaner. All right, so we got these cleaned up. Now we're going to do the same thing. So these are called terminal clamps. Okay, and these are terminal posts. Okay, all right, we're going to dry these off. If you're dealing with acid, that's what we're kind of trying to avoid, is we're counteracting the acid with this baking soda. It's basic chemistry right here. Danger, poison, blah, 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 acids, blah, 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 blah. Don't get in your eyes. My point of this is don't be licking your hands. Don't be sticking your fingers in your eyeballs. Don't be touching your kids. Don't touch the cat. Don't do anything until after you wash your hands with soap and water appropriately, okay? Now, everybody has their different opinions on how to do all this stuff. This is how I learned how to do this. This is the way I was taught. So I've had really great success. What you do is this terminal protector. You spray a little bit of this on the battery posts and the clamps, and it'll turn a nice red. And what that does is it's going to protect against any corrosion in the future. Now what we're going to do is let that dry. It'll dry to a nice film. So there's a little bit of nice film. It's starting to dry here as well. There you go. Now what we dry that, what we do is we go ahead and put these back on. Now here's the part that could get yourself into trouble if you weren't paying attention. This was the negative, this was the positive. Okay, you want to make sure you connect those two together correctly. If you don't know, or don't know exactly where it is, they should lay away from each other and then fall in the right spot. But if you don't, take a little bit of masking tape, a little marker, mark it. That way you don't confused, okay? We've let that terminal protector dry. Put battery post back on here. We're going to tighten it up. Now here's another place where people get in trouble. If you tighten it too tight, you're going to break things. It needs to be nice and snug. And there's probably some genius out there who'll tell me what the Newton pounds and torque is supposed to be for this. Oop, here's another good example. This battery not being the greatest. It's not even tied down. But again, I'm using this as an example. All right, this poor truck needs a lot of work, so that doesn't surprise me. That's why I bought this truck. It's a project truck. All right, nice and tight. Neutralize the acid. We cleaned up these posts, made them nice and shiny, and put a little protectant on it. Now, these batteries should be good for the winter. Now, if they have ability for you to check the water, you can put distilled water in there and bring the water up to the appropriate level. If it's not appropriate, it's either boiled off or it's evaporated, it's also going to affect your battery health. So you want to make sure you do that as well. Check your battery health by making sure that the water in these things is full. And check the level of each one of these cells. Now if it's low, you want to fill it with distilled water. Now each one of these don't look too bad, but we're going to check every one of them because one of them may be lower than the other, and we'll go from there. There you go. Now I got them all off. I'm going to check them with my fancy flashlight, aka iPhone, and the water levels look all appropriate. They're all, you look down in there, there's actually a line that'll tell you where they need to be. Now if you, like I said, if they were low, you would fill these with distilled water. I don't have to do that this time, so we're good to go. All right, put these back on. Make sure they're nice and snug. Don't over tighten them. You saw they didn't take a lot of force to get out. They don't need to be a lot of force to go back in. They just need to seal. You're dealing with a little bit of acid here, so again, don't be touching your face, your eyes, the cat, your daughter, your son, your wife. Don't be touching anybody until you wash your hands. If you could also protect your hands with gloves. I use gloves for certain things. This is not one of them. All right, there we go. All right, next what we're gonna do is we're gonna fill up the windshield wiper fluid with the proper fluid that'll handle winter conditions. So that what I showed you earlier is down to negative 35 degrees. Now, if the winter gets worse than that, your windshield wiper fluid may freeze up or get really sluggish in the windshield wipers. To me, if it gets that cold, I don't want to be out anyway, so probably not gonna have these problems. Now, there's some fancy cars out there, your BMWs and Mercedes, that actually got heated windshield wiper fluid nozzles and stuff like that, so that stuff won't happen. On my Chevy here, it just isn't equipped for that, so I'm just going to have to protect it with the proper fluid. All right, take my magic hole puncher here. If I wasn't rebuild my garage, which is in other episodes that you guys are currently watching, I would know where my funnel is, but I don't know where my funnel is, so you have to be very careful and just pour this in here. All right, fill it up to the top here. Try not to spill any, because if you do, you're gonna wonder what that fluid is all over the driveway and freak yourself out. Now, actually I said this earlier, this is negative 30 degrees. I'm not sponsored by Renix, but I like their stuff, their products. I've had a lot of good success with them. My motorcycle helmets, my motorcycle windshields, my cars, all that sort of stuff. So that's what I've learned to use that I like. You're gonna find different things yourself that you like, use them. That's what this whole point of these videos are, is for you to learn. And you will make mistakes, you'll learn. Maybe I should have spent a little bit more money. Typically that's what it is, you get cheap, and that old adage is, you get what you pay for. So this stuff was, I think it was $5 a gallon. There's stuff that was out there was $2 a gallon. Again, you get what you pay for. Honey Badger here. Just wrapping up the editing on the winter prep video here. Good news, 2 episodes. There was too much footage, so I'm gonna wrap this up in 2. So we're gonna call it the end of right here, episode 1. There'll be episode 2. So winter prep video 2 will be out shortly as well.